The coffee cup slipped from Sarah's hand, shattering on the floor as the sound of breaking glass cut through the cafe's silence. The hulking man towering over the counter grabbed her by the collar, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can embarrass me in front of my friends?" he snarled, yanking her forward. The fabric of her shirt strained, then tore with a sharp ripping sound. Gasps echoed through the cafe as everyone froze. Across her chest and shoulder, bold and permanent, stretched the eagle, globe, and anchor tattoo of the United States Marine Corps. And beneath it, scars, jagged, angry reminders of war, shrapnel wounds that spoke of battles most people had only seen in movies. The man's sneer faltered, his grip loosening as the weight of what he'd just revealed settled over the cafe. Sarah didn't flinch. She stood tall, meeting every pair of stunned eyes. She wasn't just a barista. She wasn't weak. She was a Marine, a war hero, hiding in plain sight, and now there was no hiding left. "Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Has anyone ever looked down on you, thought you were weak or ordinary, only to be surprised when they learned who you really were? If so, leave a comment below. I read every single one, and your story might inspire our next video." For more powerful videos about our military heroes, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue to tell these important stories. Morning light streamed through the windows of Sunrise Café, casting a warm glow over the polished wooden countertops and comfortable armchairs. The smell of freshly ground coffee beans and baked pastries filled the air, creating an atmosphere of comfort and routine. For the regulars, this small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop was more than just a place to get caffeine. It was a sanctuary of normalcy. Behind the counter, Sarah Mitchell, 29 years old, moved with graceful precision. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, revealing high cheekbones and clear green eyes that seemed to notice everything. To the customers who came in daily for their fix, she was just Sarah the barista, the woman with the warm smile who remembered their orders and occasionally surprised them with latte art. What none of them knew was that the hands that now crafted delicate swirls of cream and espresso had once assembled M4 rifles in complete darkness. The eyes that spotted when a customer needed a refill had once scanned dusty horizons for enemy movement. The voice that called out vanilla latte for Mike had once directed squad movements through crackling radio communications in the mountains of Afghanistan. Sarah had been different then. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, decorated Marine, leader of a squad that specialized in high-risk operations. She had earned her call sign Phantom for her ability to move silently through terrain that would challenge even the most seasoned operators. 3 tours in Afghanistan had shaped her into someone her current customers would never recognize. Sharp, precise, lethal when necessary. The explosion that ended her career had come without warning. One moment, her unit was securing a village. The next, she was waking up in a field hospital with shrapnel embedded in her chest and shoulder. The physical recovery took months. The mental adjustment, from warrior to civilian, was still ongoing. 3 years later, Sarah liked her life at Sunrise Café. She liked the predictability, the normalcy, the fact that no one looked at her with either the pity or the uncomfortable awe that came with being a decorated female Marine. Here she was just Sarah, not Staff Sergeant Mitchell, not one of those women who'd been over there. The morning rush was in full swing. Business professionals lined up for their to-go cups. College students with laptops claimed the corners for long study sessions. Sarah worked the espresso machine with practiced efficiency, exchanging small talk with her coworker Jenna. "That guy's back again," Jenna whispered, nodding toward a table in the corner. Sarah glanced over. A group of 4 men in expensive suits sat loudly discussing a business deal. Their leader, Michael Donovan, CEO of a local tech company, had been coming in all week. Each day his complaints grew louder, his demands more unreasonable. Nothing was ever right. The coffee too hot or too cold, the service too slow, the music too loud. Sarah had seen his type before, men who measured their worth by how many people they could intimidate. In the military, such men either adapted or failed. In civilian life, they often thrived, especially with money to insulate them from consequences. "Just ignore him," Sarah said. "He's trying to get a reaction." Jenna rolled her eyes. "Easy for you to say. He doesn't look at you like you're dirt." Sarah handed a completed order to a waiting customer with a smile. "Trust me, I've dealt with worse. Far worse." The memory of a night ambush flashed in her mind, the crack of gunfire, the weight of a wounded Marine as she dragged him to safety. She pushed the thought away, focusing on the task at hand. Steamed milk, espresso, the perfect ratio. This was her life now. The morning continued, but Donovan's voice kept rising, cutting through the cafe's pleasant atmosphere. "This place is a joke," he announced to his companions, loud enough for everyone to hear. Can't even get a simple order right. Several customers glanced over uncomfortably. A young mother gathering her things to leave hurried her movements. Sarah took a deep breath, the way her combat breathing instructor had taught her years ago. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. She approached their table. "Sir, is there something I can help you with today?" Donovan looked up at her, his eyes traveling slowly from her face down to her uniform shirt, then back up. His lips curled into an unpleasant smile. Well, finally decided to pay attention to us?" He leaned back in his chair. "Your coffee tastes like dishwater, and this pastry is stale." "I'm sorry to hear that," Sarah said evenly. "I'd be happy to replace both for you." Donovan's companions smirked. One of them, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, muttered something that made the others laugh. "You know what?" Donovan said, pushing his cup toward her. "I don't want a replacement. I want a refund. I'll need to speak with my manager about that, but nothing," he cut her off. "You girls think you can just smile your way through incompetence? This is why I don't hire women for anything important in my company." The cafe had gone quiet. Other customers were watching now, uncomfortable with the scene unfolding. At a nearby table, an elderly couple exchanged glances. The woman began gathering her things, unwilling to witness more. Sarah remained perfectly calm. In her mind, she was back in combat training. Assess the threat, evaluate options, maintain control. "Sir, I understand you're upset. If you'd like to speak with my manager, I can call him right now." Donovan stood abruptly, towering over Sarah. He was at least a foot taller, his expensive suit framing broad shoulders. "Do you know who I am? I own half the real estate in this neighborhood. I could buy this entire street if I wanted to. You should show some respect." Sarah didn't step back. She'd faced down armed insurgents. An angry businessman didn't even register as a threat. "I'm treating you with respect, sir. I'm simply asking you to do the same for our other customers." His face flushed red. "Don't talk to me about respect. You're just a coffee girl. This is probably the best job you'll ever have." A flicker of something crossed Sarah's face. Not fear, but a cold assessment. In another life, she would have already neutralized this threat. Here, she simply needed to de-escalate. "I'll get my manager," she said, turning to walk away. His hand shot out, grabbing her arm. "Don't you walk away when I'm talking to you." The cafe went silent. Jenna froze by the register. A college student halfway stood from his chair, unsure whether to intervene. An older man in the corner lowered his newspaper, watching intently. Sarah looked down at the hand gripping her arm, then back up at Donovan's face. "Let go of me, now." Her voice was quiet but carried an unmistakable edge of authority. Something in her tone made him blink, a steel that hadn't been there before, a command that expected to be obeyed. The cafe was utterly still, as if everyone held their breath. Instead of releasing her, Donovan tightened his grip. "Or what? You'll throw coffee on me? You don't know who you're dealing with." Sarah didn't move, didn't speak. She simply stared at him with eyes that had suddenly gone cold. The eyes of someone who had seen things this man couldn't imagine. Eyes that had watched friends die, that had looked through rifle scopes at enemy combatants, that had remained steady while medical helicopters carried away the wounded. "You think you're tough," he sneered, his grip still tight on her arm. "Let me tell you something." Sarah moved, so fast that later customers would disagree about what happened first. She twisted her arm in a way that broke his grip, forcing his wrist into an unnatural angle. He gasped in pain and stumbled forward. Reaching blindly, he grabbed for her collar, catching the fabric of her uniform shirt. As he yanked her toward him, the sound of tearing cloth echoed through the cafe. Gasps filled the room. Donovan stumbled backwards, still clutching a piece of Sarah's torn shirt. His anger transformed into confusion as he stared at what had been revealed. Across Sarah's upper chest and shoulder stretched the unmistakable emblem of the United States Marine Corps, eagle, globe, and anchor, rendered in black ink. Beside it, partially visible beneath her tank top, was a combat action ribbon tattoo. And above them both, a ragged scar that could only have been made by shrapnel. But it wasn't just the tattoos or the scar that transfixed everyone. It was the way Sarah stood now, shoulders squared, chin lifted, feet planted in a balanced stance that any trained fighter would recognize. Gone was the friendly barista, replaced by something harder, sharper, forged in fire and combat. The cafe went deathly quiet. Forks hovered over plates, conversations died mid-sentence, and all eyes turned to Sarah. Sarah didn't attempt to cover herself. She stood straight, shoulders back, in the instinctive posture of a Marine at attention. Her eyes locked with Donovan's, but there was no embarrassment in them, only a cold, steady assessment. 3 tours, she said quietly, her voice carrying in the silence. Helmand Province. I've been shot at by experts. I've pulled wounded Marines to safety under heavy fire. I've had my body torn apart by an IED and put back together again. Donovan's face had drained of color. The piece of fabric hung limply from his hand. And now, Sarah continued, I make coffee, not because it's all I can do, but because after what I've seen, what I've done, there's peace in creating something that brings people joy. One of his companions stood, voice unsteady. Mike, we should go. But Donovan seemed unable to move, transfixed by the Marine Corps emblem, by the scars that told stories he couldn't begin to comprehend. An older man at a nearby table rose slowly to his feet. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and the erect posture that spoke of military service. He approached Sarah, stopped a respectful distance away, and rendered a perfect salute. Semper Fi, Marine, he said. Sarah returned the salute automatically, muscle memory from years of service. Semper Fi. The moment hung in the air, crystalline and perfect. 2 warriors recognizing each other across generations, across experiences. Donovan finally found his voice. I didn't know. No, Sarah said. You didn't. You looked at me and saw just a coffee girl, someone you could intimidate, someone beneath you. She stepped closer to him, and though she was shorter, he seemed to shrink under her gaze. That's the problem with people like you. You never know who you're judging until it's too late. The cafe remained silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Then from the back, a woman began to applaud. Others joined in, the sound growing until it filled the small space. Donovan backed away, stumbling slightly. His companions gathered their things, faces flushed with embarrassment. They hurried toward the door, leaving cash scattered on the table. As they left, Sarah turned to face the cafe. Customers stared back at her with new eyes. She wasn't just Sarah the barista anymore. The carefully constructed normalcy she had built was gone. Jenna approached with a clean apron. To cover up, she said quietly, offering it to Sarah. Sarah took it with a nod of thanks, tying it over her torn shirt. But she knew it was too late. Her secret was out. The older veteran approached her again. Staff Sergeant? Sarah looked at him, surprised he had correctly guessed her rank. Your ink, he explained with a small smile. I recognized the rank insignia alongside the EGA. She nodded, suddenly feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with her torn shirt. This man could read her history on her skin. I was with 1st Marines, Vietnam, he said. My name's Robert. Sarah Mitchell, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. It's an honor, he said simply. Then with a glance around the silent cafe, he added, they don't understand, you know, what it's like to come back and try to fit in, to walk around carrying what we carry, seeing what we've seen. Sarah felt something in her chest loosen slightly. The recognition of someone who truly knew. No, she agreed. They don't. Robert studied her face for a moment. You've been trying to disappear, haven't you? Become just another civilian? Sarah hesitated, then nodded. I wanted normal. After everything over there, I just wanted quiet. And how's that working out for you? His eyes were kind but knowing. Sarah glanced around the cafe, at the customers still watching them, at Jenna who looked at her now with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Not so well today. My coffee shop's just a few blocks away, Robert said. Smaller than this place, but we hire vets exclusively. Combat veterans mostly, people who understand. He pulled out a business card and placed it on the counter. If you ever want a change of scenery. Sarah looked at it for a long moment before picking it up. Thank you. As Robert returned to his table, customers began to approach one by one. Some simply wanted to thank her for her service. Others apologized as if they personally had wronged her by not seeing her for who she was. The young woman asked if Sarah had faced a lot of prejudice as a female Marine. Sarah answered politely but briefly. This was exactly what she had tried to avoid, being seen as a curiosity, a novelty, an object of either pity or fascination. By the time her shift ended, news had spread beyond the cafe. A local reporter waited outside, hoping for an interview with the Marine barista. Sarah declined politely but firmly. As she walked home that evening, Sarah realized her carefully constructed anonymity was gone forever. Tomorrow there would be more questions, more curious stares, more people seeing not Sarah, but female Marine. The thought exhausted her. Yet, as she unlocked her apartment door, she found herself looking at Robert's business card again. Perhaps there was another way. Not hiding who she was, but finding a place where she didn't have to explain herself. Where her strength wasn't something that shocked people. Inside her small apartment, Sarah moved to the bedroom closet. In the back, hidden behind civilian clothes, hung her dress blues. She hadn't worn them since the funeral of a fellow Marine 2 years ago. She ran her fingers over the fabric, feeling the weight of medals and ribbons. The person who had earned these seemed like a stranger sometimes. She pulled out a small box from the top shelf, opened it. Inside lay her Purple Heart, awarded after the IED explosion. Beside it, the Bronze Star with Combat V for valor, earned when she had pulled 3 wounded Marines to safety under enemy fire. Sarah Mitchell had spent 3 years trying to be just a barista, but the Marine was still there, would always be there, in her posture, in her scars, in the way she assessed every room she entered for threats and exits, in the nightmares that still woke her at though 300, in the way she couldn't sit with her back to a door, in her instinctive reaction to loud noises. She had tried to bury that part of herself, thinking it was the only way to find peace, but today had shown her something different. Maybe peace wasn't about pretending to be someone she wasn't. Maybe it was about finding a place where all parts of her could exist together. Sarah pulled out her phone and dialed the number on Robert's card. It rang twice before he answered. Frontline Coffee. His voice was gruff but warm. "This is Sarah Mitchell," she said. "The Marine from Sunrise Café." "Staff Sergeant," he acknowledged. "I was hoping you'd call." Sarah took a deep breath. "That job offer, is it still open? For someone with your record?" "Always." There was a smile in his voice. "When can you start?" Sarah looked around her apartment, at the life she had built trying to be someone she wasn't. "Tomorrow," she said. "I'm done hiding." After she hung up, Sarah sat on her bed for a long time. The dress blues spread beside her. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she wouldn't have to pretend that the most important parts of her didn't exist. Tomorrow she could be whole again. The woman who made perfect lattes and the warrior who had faced death in Afghanistan, they were the same person. And perhaps it was time the world saw both. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been judged based on your appearance or job? Have you ever revealed skills or strengths that surprised everyone around you? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might inspire our next video. And if you want to make sure you don't miss our future stories about hidden heroes, hit that subscribe button right now.